Hi, good afternoon. I think we're live now. Oh, not yet. Okay. Hello, everybody. Good afternoon, and welcome to Travel Writing Matters. My name is Odyssa, and I am the writer of From Where I Stand. Um, So today we're talking about writing and one of the favorite things that we all like to do, which is travel. So since the pandemic ended, um, it's like everyone is excited to go back to the airports and start traveling again. Um, Okay, so let me introduce myself first. My name is Odyssa, and I'm here in Hanoi, Vietnam, and I work as a teacher. And I have traveled to a few places. So these are some of the places that I've been to. I'm sure that some of you have traveled to more places, and that's great because it means that you have more things to write about. And I used to live in the Philippines, and I just moved to Vietnam last year. If you are comfortable sharing, then feel free to write down the countries where you've been to. It would be great to know, and I will surely respond to them later. Okay. Now, a quick intro of who I am as a writer. I write poetry and personal essays. So these are my first two books. And then this year, there will be Hands That Carry, a poetry book about family. And I have a poem featured in the Fairy Tale magazine. Personal essays on relationships and writing are here in these websites. Okay. So what is the purpose of this of the session? The purpose is really to learn something new. Um, if you're into writing and travel, I'm sure that that's the reason why you logged in and you're watching the show. And we would like to inspire and encourage each other to write about our trips. And also, most important of all, we want to create together. So, this is the purpose. These are the purposes of this session. Okay. Next, things that you will need for this session is if you would like to take notes, bring out your pens and notebooks. And I'd like you to participate in this session, even if we're just, we have a few people now online. Participate and write down your comments in the comment section. Okay. Um, so I will be asking questions throughout the session. You can write a smiley, type in a smiley face or a sad face if your answer is yes or no, just so I can see what your sentiments are. Okay. Next, is there anything that you expect from the session? If you have one or two expectations, then feel free to write them down. Also, I will be uh, talking in English as we might have a few people that are not from the Philippines who are attending. And yeah, so if you have any expectations from this session, feel free to write them down. Okay. Okay. So why travel writing matters? Why does travel writing matter to us who travel and to us who write? First of all, travel writing matters because it informs us and educates. So if you've traveled to, a new country or a new city, then I'm sure that you've probably checked some blogs or some books or reviews about the place where you will be going. Just so you have some information about what's going on there, what to expect, what kind of what kind of culture and food and weather there will be when you get there. So travel writing matters because it informs us of the place and it also educates us of the world that's outside of ours. Okay, if you know the book Lonely Planet, that is one of it's a parang series of books siya about different countries, and these books, give all the information you need about a specific place. So that's an example of travel writing that's informative and educational. Okay, travel writing matters because it preserves memories. So when we say it preserves memories, you know how you want, when you have positive memories, you kind of get this feeling of sana it lasts forever, or I hope I can always get back to that feeling of maybe bliss or joy when you were in that country with your family or with your significant other. um Travel, to me, this is why I write about my trips. It's really because so I can remember and look back to what happened in the past. It's really to to keep those memories preserved. And we do that in writing, in our Instagram posts, through photos and videos. Okay, next. This is an example of a poem that I wrote about the beds in hostels. So if you've been if you've done a budget trip before and you've stayed in a hostel, you know how the beds in dorms, in dormitory rooms, are cheaper. Diba? They're cheaper, and they're also sometimes they're not so comfortable. And I wrote about this in this poem, Tiny Bed, um, because I can clearly remember that time in my life when I didn't have the money to pay for my own room, and I have to share the room with other fellow travelers. So this is an example of writing about a trip so you can preserve the memories from the trip. Okay, travel writing matters because it also inspires personal growth. Um, I think that travel really expands us as people and as human beings. Um, and when we travel, we, you know what they say, parang you get out of your comfort zone. And that's very true. And travel gives us a perspective that we haven't really seen before. We haven't seen them in books. No one can give us the experience that travel can give us. So it inspires personal growth because we grow as people whenever we get out of our houses and we get out of our countries. We experience hardships, we experience adventure, we meet people. Like these strangers can turn into friends, and that changes our lives, right? Okay, so this is an example of someone who traveled. She traveled for the first time, and she shared. I had this giveaway a couple of months ago for the launch of my book, and the question that I asked was how think of a trip that changed your life. And it was her first time to get out of the country. And she said, I realized that I can do it. Kaya ko naman pala. After Hanoi, so she visited Hanoi, she visited and checked other countries and their cuisine as well. And she said, hindi lang lumawak ang palette ko, mas lumawak din ang tingin ko sa mundo. It means not only did her palette expand or widen, but also her perspective of the world. So that, I think because of that, she'd like to travel to more countries after seeing one new country. And that's kind of the travel bug. di ba may tinatawag tayong wanderlust? It's like an itch that you just want to keep traveling even if you've you've traveled to several countries before. It's like just want to keep seeing new places. And is anyone here has anyone here traveled to within their countries, like taken domestic flights? Maybe you can write a smiley. And then, has anyone here traveled outside of your countries? Maybe you can also write down the name of the countries that you have gone to. I would like to see that. Okay. And then I'd like to know what your definition of travel is. What is your definition of travel? So I'll give you a few seconds to type in uh, your the meaning of travel to you. So you can say travel to me is, and why do you travel? I travel because. Okay, I'll give you a few seconds to write those down. Okay, I love travel and would like to write about it online, says Borinaga RB. Okay. Okay, so that's your definition of travel. These are some works that made an impact. So if you've read any of these books, it's because they've become really popular. Eat, Pray, Love is, they say it's a woman's book. Over 10 million people have read this book, and they say that it started a movement of women traveling by themselves or traveling solo, and eventually finding themselves outside of their comfort zone. So that's Eat, Pray, Love. Eventually it was turned into a movie starring Julia Roberts. And then the next book, this is Into the Wild, also a novel turned into a movie. It's about this man, John, chasing his dream to visit Alaska. So what he did was he came from a troubled family, and he abandoned his life. He abandoned his life. He sold his belongings, left his car. The police were looking for him, his family. So medyo extreme naman yung story niya. And then, so eventually he fell ill because he went into the jungle or the forest, and he got really sick, and eventually he died. But it's a good story to get into. And then last book is The Art of Travel by this philosopher Alain de Botton. He talks about how our anticipation of travel can be even more or even better than the actual destination itself. If you've experienced filing for leave from work, for example, magkaka-Holy Week or long weekend, or nag-file ka ng leave for Thursday and Friday so you can go on a trip, he says that the anticipation, let's say you've waited for that leave for 6 months, is greater than the feeling of arriving. So that's one of the things that I remember from this book. Next, how do you find your voice as a travel writer? So you find your voice um, through these things. Okay, there's absolutely no hack to finding your voice as a travel writer. You need to keep writing, you need to start writing. Yesterday, I watched Cindy's talk. Cindy Wong had a talk about AI, and that was very informative. I like how there was a balance between using technology for writing, how it can assist us, how it can support us as writers, and still using our own creativity to make things, relying on our own experiences, our own intelligence, to create books or to create blog posts and to write stories. So there's no hack in finding your voice as a travel writer. Um, just keep writing. Also, I wanted to share with you that this morning I joined Michelle Alagao's talk about uh, building a sustainable writing career, and it's on the eight letters page. It There's a lot of useful and helpful things there for people who are starting out as writers. There's so many resources that she shared. So I highly recommend that you watch those two videos. Next, second thing, how do you find your voice as a travel writer? You have to write from the heart. Writing from the heart means that um, you are your own, you have your own experiences and you have your own emotions. You have your own opinion about things. And I know that AI can read books and it can generate images and videos for us, and it can respond to us, but still, if you write from the heart, that makes your work authentically you, and genuine. And I said this in one of my Instagram reels a couple of days ago, that when people can hear you speak, and when people can say that I feel like I know this writer, or I feel like she's a friend, that's when you know that your writing voice is starting to surface, or it's present. And it takes time. It doesn't, I don't think this happens in a month or two. Sometimes it might even take years for you to find out what works for you and what you are naturally inclined to write. Next, experiment with different styles and writing prompts. So different styles meaning, if you are starting out as a writer, if you're comfortable in poetry, then keep writing poems. If you want to try writing creative fiction or creative nonfiction, then by all means, diba? Try different styles. No, there is really no limit with writing, and that's what makes writing great, because you have the power and the you really have the freedom to write about what you want to write and how you want to write it. And then writing prompts, these are so helpful for me. Writing prompts are like a small nudge for you to think about a topic that you haven't really thought about. Here below, I put a writing prompt. Where on earth, you can answer this too. Write your answer in the comment section. Where on earth would you travel to if money was not an issue? If you're not thinking about the money, if you're not worried about the visa, where would you go? Where would you go? So I think that a lot of Filipinos would go to Europe, to countries in Europe, because they're more expensive. They are, medyo tedious to get a visa, to get your Schengen visa. Um, so these things, some things that we don't really think about. Sometimes writing prompts can really help us. So which country would you travel to if money was not an issue, and why? Can you answer in the comment section? Okay. So Cindy said, travel is life. After discovering how it improves my life, it's now a basic need. So that's just says that travel can really expand us as people. And Alexis said, travel is like reading a book, with each country a chapter. That's so beautiful. Yeah, you look at each story as a chapter, each country as a book. Each anecdote as a verse. When you think of it that way, then maybe you can make a book yourself about your trips. Um, okay, Italy. Someone says Italy. I would go there too. I would love to go to Italy and, uh, you know, eat pizza and pasta and do just eat all the food there. Um, okay, next, how to find your voice as a travel writer. Read widely. So, in the talk earlier by the Filipino poet Michelle Alagao, I love what she said. She said you have to read intentionally. You have to read intentionally. Um, because when we read, there's so many reasons why we should read, right? uh we learn from the books. But to me as a writer, I think that this goes so, like, hand in hand with writing. Reading and writing go together. Do you agree? Like, put a smiley if you agree that you write and read, and these two always go together. um okay, I will read your comments later. Very interesting. uh so I think that reading gives us the possibilities of what our imagination can make. Um, so there's this author, American author named Anne Patchett, and we, I read her nonfiction books, and because I was so inspired by her writing and by her life story, it really fueled me to write my own. And that's what great books can do to writers. They can really change the way we look at writing. It changes the way we look at our lives. So there's this author named Sharon Lebel, the writer of The Art of Living, and she said, "Books are training weights for the mind." So if you go to the gym, so you can, gain muscles and get physically stronger, that's what books do to our brains or to our minds. So books are best friends of writers, I think. If you have your favorite book, please share it in the comments below. I would like to know what your favorite books are. So yes, read widely. It's one of the ways for you to know um, your voice. Now, how do you document your trip? Number one, get into the details. It's so easy to miss details because they happen so quickly, right? But the example would be, the example situation is, you got offloaded at the airport. And this happened to me a few years ago. I was supposed to go to Taiwan, but they didn't let me because I had problems with my passport. So I got offloaded at that time when offloaded wasn't really a thing. And I know that this year, I read a lot that a lot of uh, Filipinos traveling are getting offloaded. And I think that if it happened to you and you want to write about this offloading situation, you can begin your story from the time that you booked your ticket, from until the time that you were packing your bags, on your way to the airport, what the immigration said to you, what were the documents that you prepared. So get into the details of the story. And that makes the story unique, more memorable, and personal. It's your story. Okay, next, take notes or forget. Okay, you have to take notes or forget. There's so many tools. If you travel and your intention is um to write down, like to document or to record the things that happen to you, then you have to take notes, or all of these scenes, they will just pile up in your head and you will forget the small details. So you can use Google Docs. I have like a folder of all of my submissions in Google Docs, so I can access it anywhere. There are so many apps that you use. Whatever tool that you use, can you write it down in the comments so you can share it with others too? Personally, I use Evernote. I've been using this since 2017 or 2018. I, my life is in Evernote. Everything is in Evernote. Ideas, quotes, what I learned from books, I keep in Evernote. Okay. And then OneNote, other people, it works just like Evernote. They're both free, but also, they have their premium versions. And then of course the good old pen and notepad. If you can have like a small notebook with you and then write down um put it in your travel bag, then that would be a very simple way of taking notes of your trip. Next, immerse yourself into the local life. Thanks for sharing your favorite books. Okay, Glass Lake by Maeve Binchy and A Time to Kill by John Grisham. Okay, by a Facebook user. So immerse yourself into the local life. What does it mean to be a tourist and a traveler? So these are uh, two different meanings when you travel, right? So when you're a tourist, it's like you're scratching the surface. And you may be visiting like maybe museums, the tour, whatever the tour guides recommend to you. And being a traveler is being there in the place and eating what they eat, taking the public transportation, making conversations with the people who are there, who live there, who live the life of a local. And I think that this is definitely the best way for you to get to know a place. So Willer once wrote about his lost baggage that was never recovered. I'm so sorry about that. I'm sure that you felt awful when that happened, but hopefully you've recovered, even if you weren't able to recover the lost baggage. Um, so yeah, immerse yourself into the local life. When I moved here last year, I definitely felt the shift when I wasn't a tourist anymore, when I became kind of a resident in Vietnam. So it definitely changed the way I think. It changed the way I saw the country. And then I started to study the language as well, the Vietnamese language, and it just changes everything when you immerse yourself into the local life. You stop being a tourist. Okay. Okay, so what are the writing techniques for travel writing? Number one, use anecdotes and dialogue. So when we use anecdotes, these are short stories of things that happened to you. For example, Willer's lost baggage at the airport. That's an entire story in itself. Ano yung laman ng luggage? Why is it important to you? How did you feel when you found out that it's gone, right? How did you respond to the situation? So there are so many ways to write about this lost luggage. And the dialogue, what were the conversations that happened when you lost that baggage? Did you call your family? Did you call someone important? When you had the conversation with the people at the airport or the airlines, how did that conversation go? Was it helpful? Okay, so use anecdotes and dialogue. Next, use descriptive language and sensory details. Descriptive language means, and sensory language means you paint an image in the mind of your reader. Paint an image. So when the luggage was lost, where were you? Did you find out when you were in the hotel room, or at the, what do you call that? The luggage, like where you pick up your luggage. Did you find out there? And when you found out, where did you go afterward? How did you feel? Were you upset? Were you anxious? And sensory details. When you went to this cafe in Saigon, were you satisfied by by the coffee that you ordered? Did you like egg coffee, or did you feel like it wasn't worth the visit? Right? Sensory details. What were the noises around you in the cafe? What were the people chatting about? Um, what were the baristas doing over the counter? So paint an image of the place and the situation to your reader. Okay, next, do your research. There's this book entitled Hanoi Stories, written by Pam Scott. She's an Australian writer, and she was one of the founders of a bookstore here in Hanoi that carries English books. So she definitely changed the way that people read, especially the expats. Because expats at that time, like in the 90s, were looking for sorry, not in the 90s, but early 2000s, we're looking for English books. And she brought books from Australia, and eventually it became a bookstore. And in this book, she inserted historical information about Hanoi. And that's when I found out that it was only in the 90s that Hanoi had grocery stores built and traffic lights. So this is fairly new. It was only recent that they accepted or opened the country to foreign trade. So if you plan on writing about Cebu, it would be good to do a little research, do some reading, or use AI, I guess, if that's something that you prefer, to present the place and give a like a historical perspective of the place that you visited. Okay, so do your research. Okay, next. So we're going to do a writing session, and I hope that you all have your notepads and pens with you, or you can type it on your laptops. But if you have anything to share or questions, write them down in the comments, and I'll be happy to read them later. Okay, so let's get into the writing session. Um, okay, so think of an important trip or holiday. Think of an important trip or holiday. Um, Maybe it was a summer vacation, maybe it was a work trip, or a trip with your family, with your significant other. So think of that trip. Next, write down the details of this trip. Okay, where, when, who did you go with, or who did you meet there, and what was that trip for? What was that trip for? Um, okay, so think about that. And then, so now that you've thought about that important trip, let's go to the next step. How did this trip change you? How did this trip change you? So you can start by saying, this trip changed me by, giving me an idea that I want to live abroad. Or this trip changed me because it introduced me to the love of my life. Or this trip changed me because it made my family more interested in going on trips. So there are so many things. I will give you a few minutes. And again, you can write them down in the comments. Meanwhile, I want to write what you guys have read. So Willer would like to go to dangerous places. The Way of the Bull, Michael Crichton's Travels. I haven't read those books. The Perfect Wife by Blake Pierce. A Phone Note. Okay, we'll read more about that later. I love travel and would like to write about it online. Okay. Okay. Someone who is not a traveler yet. So if you have not traveled yet, then that's totally fine. There are many ways for us to do travel writing without getting out of the country. It doesn't need to cost us so much. There are places around you that you can go to. Um, and you write about these places. So how did this trip change you? I hope you're done. Hopefully you're done writing about this trip, and feel free to share them in the comments below. And I promise I will respond to them. Okay. Next, choose a scene. Okay. So from the trip that you just wrote about, think of one scene that stands out from the trip. One scene that stands out from the trip. Was it an accident? Was it um, something unusual? Was it something dangerous? Was it something special? Okay, so write about that scene for, I don't know, 5 minutes or so. And again, you are free to share your comments here. Okay, Borinaga RB uses a phone note. Okay, so you've written about that scene. So share your thoughts. So tell me what you've written about, which place, which scene, and maybe the people who are attending this talk can write, can say something about it too. So this diarist uh, said, Anais Nin, I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly, Anais Nin, we write to taste life twice. And what you just did, writing about your trip, writing about that important scene from that trip, that's what you just did. You tasted life twice. You remembered what it was like to to be there and to be with people that you love dearly, or to be having this adventure of a lifetime, and it's like you were just repeating the experience through your writing. Okay, now let's move to the question and answer. Do you have any questions about what we just discussed? Okay. I can't open I can see all of the comments right now. But if you have any questions, just post them in the comments and I'll be happy to answer them later. Okay, so here's a word of encouragement for all of the writers and travelers that are here. First, write what you know. If, let's say, you're a mom or a dad and you watch your children grow in front of you, or you watch your toddler take his first step, then this is something that's close to your heart, and this is something that I think would be will come naturally to you, because it's a personal experience, um And if you're a writer, then you don't have to do a research about this anymore, because it's right there in front of you. So write what you know. I've had some, I have a friend who only writes historical fiction, and that's because he loves to read history. And whenever he travels, he would write about the place together with the history of the place, and create like a different world and then characters, but still the history is there, is present in his story. So write what you know or what you're comfortable with. Number two, focus on the process. um, and the process starts when you sit down and start writing. You focus on the process of writing. Have the patience, and every day, if you see yourself making mistakes, if you fall out of the writing habit, then forgive yourself. This is the process of writing. And number three, nobody cares. So you can see this from two angles. You can say, oh my gosh, nobody cares about my writing, nobody cares about my work, so might as well just stop and do something else. Excuse me. And sayang, don't let the music die with you, because someone might want to hear your story, even if it's just one person, that it still matters, right? Or you can say, oh, nobody cares if I publish a book. Nobody cares if I make a website. Nobody cares if I publish a blog um, about my heartbreak. And that would be the attitude of, I'm sure that the writers here who have been writing for a long time, that's the attitude that you should have if you are serious about writing. Nobody cares. Do it. Go for it. Sabi nga ni Michelle Alagao this morning, just go for it if you want to go on a writing career or writing path. Okay, so from Henry Miller, one's destination is never a place, but a new way of seeing things. So, you know that saying that the journey is more important than the destination. Because in the journey, that's when you actually learn, and experience new things. You experience, uh, you get into these situations that otherwise you wouldn't experience if you were back home. And again, these things you never learn in school, and no one can ever tell you that, about this experience and give you that experience. Only you can have that. Okay. Okay. So let's connect. I hope that you guys can. Okay. I see some questions. I will answer later. Um, my website is odyssawrites.com. I have Instagram, that's Odyssa A. My Facebook page is Odyssa Writes. Um, and, hopefully we can all connect in these sites. And what's next? So, June, Philippine Book Fair. I'm pretty sure that 8 letters will be there, and hopefully I will be there too. That's June 2 to 3. And then book 3, Hands That Carry. Um, it will be published soon, maybe in the next 2 or 3 months, also with 8 letters. Book 1 is with 8 letters, book 2 is also with them. And I'm really excited about this. In September would be the Manila International Book Fair. And I would like to be there if 8 letters will be inviting me to attend. Okay. So let's go to your questions. What's your most memorable trip experience? Most memorable, I think it would be moving here to Vietnam, because this is the first time that I lived abroad, lived outside of the country. And it's memorable because it's a radical change from my old life. Um, you know, Suddenly I was in a country that does not predominantly speak English, and that's such a big adjustment. Suddenly I didn't have my family with me. I didn't have friends. And I really had to start from square one or square zero. Um, and that's these are the experiences that make us grow. So to me right now, this period of my life is a memorable trip or memorable experience. Okay, so Marfel has written fiction, but main event is experience of traveling and hiking. Okay, congratulations, you got published in Eight Letter Circle. um okay. And then there was someone who asked, can you insert uh, fictional stories into historical data? Yes, of course. Yeah, can you add fictional elements inside a non-fic travel story? Yes. Yes, my answer is yes. Um, okay. So, any last few words from the attendees for today? If you have any comments about what we talked about, then write them down. Otherwise, I think we can end, and I would like to thank all of you for joining. Okay, someone said Hong Kong family trip in 2009. We stayed in a friend's unit in Tunchung Island where we take MTR and pass under the sea to Hong Kong and vice versa. Okay, sounds really fun. Hong Kong, I think Hong Kong is open now. Okay, someone said, from someone who is not even a published author, how can she merge travel writing in the first two genres? Can travel writing be merged with a medical genre like that work, Jewel in the Palace? Yes, okay. Um, yes, definitely. There is this book. I recommend that you check out this book called Admissions. It was written by this brain surgeon. Let me just look for the Admissions Life as a Brain Surgeon by Henry Marsh. It's a book about his trips, a book about his medical surgeries as a brain surgeon, and it was a very interesting book. And I think that you would be interested in that. I can't see your name, but I hope this helps answer your question. He used to travel a lot when he was younger. I think he worked in the Middle East before he came back to the UK, I think. Um, so definitely travel writing can be merged with, medical stories or um, it says a novel or a film. Yes, it's a right question to ask. So yeah. Any other questions? Okay, so thank you everyone for okay. Oh, Doc Tien, 3 or 4 years ago, I went, hello, Tien. I went to Hoi An with my family in our car because it helped me learn more about the beauty of Vietnam and was fun. Okay. He's my student from grade 7. Hoi An is beautiful. Hoi An is a beautiful place, and they say that it's one of the most beautiful cities in the world. If you're familiar with Hoi An, it has these famous lanterns, and it's a very, very small town in I think it's in central Vietnam. So it's definitely worth visiting. I have a friend who has this in his bucket list. I'm glad you shared that, Tian. Thank you, and see you next week in class. Okay, so thank you everyone for attending. Um, okay, if you're being challenged by writing, just keep writing and don't stop. Be patient, and everything that's great does not come easy. So thank you very much, and I hope to see you all online. I will respond to your comments. Is admissions considered as travel genre? Admissions, it's not travel writing. It's not a travel writing book. um Admissions is more, it's a medical book because it's more about the surgeries that he's done. But a lot of the chapters in the book were about his experiences as a doctor outside of the UK. And you'll see the difference, how working in a hospital is in a like in a, you know, medyo struggling kasi yung city na yon when it comes to giving medical support to their people. And yeah, it's a good book. Check it out. I would highly recommend it. Okay, thanks everyone. Thank you.